JP Siratovic. You are co-founder and executive chairman at Squiz, and what we call an industry doyen. I am chief inquisitor, or also CMO at Squiz, and today we're going to talk about the idea between having to choose between monoliths or niches and whether you need to make a choice between the both. So customers today are struggling with digital experiences. We have done our own research where we've identified there's this big digital aspiration gap between what customers are sold and believe is possible with digital, and in reality, how it actually turns out in practice is a lot harder than they thought. And this has been echoed in Gartner's own research that they call an aspiration gap as well. Why is it so hard?
That's a big answer, but I'll start with the most obvious part. And the fact is, our expectations of what we can do with digital have changed. That's what really makes it hardest. So if we look at what we could do once upon a time when the internet was fairly young, all we need to do was publish content. These days, we have to build a whole range of different types of digital experiences. So it's not just static websites. They're websites that interact with people. They include functionality like things like personalization and customer self-service. They come in a range of different forms. So you've got websites, but you've also got intranets and portals. And then they're delivered through a whole range of different channels. So obviously a desktop browser, but a mobile device, a tablet, different applications that you might be using. And then somehow you've got to kind of coordinate all of these things. You've got to make them all work together at the same time in an environment which you're still trying to keep secure and manage as an organization overall. So you've moved from just managing one thing, like I need to create and publish content, instead to trying to manage a whole range of functions in different environments that need to be kept in sync across different systems. That's why it's hard.
Latest MarTech landscape reports have shown that there's nearly 9,000 MarTech tools available out there for organizations to choose from. So the choice has never been greater. But recent reports from analysts have also shown, Gartner has said 2/3 of CFOs believe that MarTech has failed to meet enterprise expectations. Worse, even as they continue to expand the tech stack, utilization of the software that's already been implemented is actually falling, and marketers are now under more pressure than ever to rein in runaway investments. Now, Forrester have also kind of echoed in terms of more niche solutions, point solutions that do, verticals really well. Now, a lot of people, they say we're piling into digital tech because no one wanted to be left behind, but a lot of that tech is point solutions, and they're really struggling to deliver value from that. They don't have the skills internally, they lack integration. A lot of the tech silos between all them things are actually making things a lot harder. So with all the tech choices today, it seems as though they're keeping organizations stuck in the aspiration gap versus helping them close that gap. Why do you believe that is? What is it about today's solutions and options that are keeping them in this gap?
Yeah, okay, good question. There's kind of two approaches to building digital experiences, right? So one approach is I want to buy a product that can do everything for me. The other approach is I'm going to navigate those 9,000 MarTech tools and build my own solution, right? So when you made reference to Forrester a second ago, Joe Sickman is the analyst that covers DXP in that space. He said DXPs do exist, but they're built by organizations, not supplied by vendors. So he's very much on the end of the spectrum where he says you can't go out and buy a single platform, what people call a digital experience platform, that's going to solve all of your digital experience problems in one place. Instead, you're going to have to go and put these different solutions together, these different niche tools. So describing those two approaches, I'll call one side monolithic DXP, buy the Swiss Army knife that does absolutely everything for me, or two, go and build my own, compose a solution. Now, this idea of building my own and composing a solution is made possible because of a rise of something called Match, M-A-C-H. And that is taking advantage of trends like microservices, API first, the fact that everything is SaaS, so that's the C is cloud, and the H is headless is another term that you might have heard before. So it's the idea that all of the applications I might buy, they're designed to be plugged together in different sorts of ways, and I could create my own solution. So I could say I could go and go my Swiss Army knife, which is meant to do everything, or I could go and build my own solution. So why wouldn't I go and take the Swiss Army knife? I think probably the answer is the same reason why you don't use a Swiss Army knife in your kitchen. So if you had a Swiss Army knife and you wanted to go and cook food you could peel food, you could dice food, you could use the knife to do all of those things, but it's not very convenient. It's not good at doing all of the jobs you need to do in the kitchen. So you find that in your drawer, you go, actually, I want to use a large chef's knife, or I need a paring knife. You choose the tool that's right for the particular circumstances you want. So bottle opener, same with everything else that you might have. So it sounds like what I'm saying is just go and buy the separate tools. That should be a better approach. Thing is, the analogy of a Swiss Army knife and kitchen tools breaks down in a digital model because you introduce different problems. If you've got a drawer full of different kitchen tools, you don't worry about cross-compatibility. You don't worry about data silos. You don't worry about security. You don't worry about design consistency. Whereas those are very real problems in the context of an organization. So what organizations need is a solution that is not all-in-one tool set that doesn't suit the scenarios that you need in every case. And they also don't need a drawer full of tools that don't necessarily work well together. They need a different approach.
You've just explained the big all-in-one monoliths are hard to use, expensive, takes too long to deploy, and almost lock you into a set of things that it can do well and a lot of things it probably can't do as well.
Yep.
The niche point solutions create a range of other problems, mainly around fragmentation and things being really disconnected.
Correct.
And so no wonder people are struggling with digital experiences. But what's the solution then? Like, there certainly has to be a way forward. What is it?
Quite right. And we believe the solution to that is a composable DXP. So it's actually take the best of both worlds and solve the problem in the middle. So what actually is a composable DXP? It's a different approach to digital experience management, where the architecture of the overall environment is designed to make it easy for to use some of these different point solutions together, and at the same time give you the tool sets that you need to solve problems like design consistency, managing your security, making the maintenance of the solution a lot easier from an upgradability point of view, removing content silos. Composable DXP is one that accepts you want the freedom to choose the different tools that you need in your environment, and then makes it easy to manage that environment when you're using these different tools together.
Somebody might be out there going, look, I believe all my niche solutions already integrate with any other tech that I'm using. Or I have an all-in-one that seems to be integrated already and they work supposedly together and they talk to each other.
Yep.
Is it just integrations that you need to fix? Is that going to solve all problems? What's the difference between what you've talked about in composability and just integrations?
No, there's a bunch of different layers that create issues. And one example that might make sense of that would be design inconsistency. We all understand there is a lot of value in providing a consistent digital experience to our end users. We want to feel like our brand is represented consistently, but also things like navigation are easy. You don't get lost within different digital systems and silos and feel like an organization is separated. It's very easy if you choose a range of digital solutions that you find each of them has a different templating system or a different look and feel associated with it, and it breaks that consistent digital experience as a result. Now, you might put effort into doing something like building a design system. So as an organization, you might say, this is the way we want our overall look and feel to operate. And then you put effort into applying those designs to each of the different templates and systems. When it comes to changing that design system, which is what all organizations do from time to time, you rebrand, the structural changes, organizations get acquired, governments get restructured, there's different things that occur that cause you to have to adapt your look and feel. All of a sudden, you realize you have a lot of work to do to go and reapply that look and feel to all of the different systems you've got. Now, a composable DXP, by contrast, would instead go, how do we actually give you a tool set that when you're managing design, it assumes you're going to be working with different systems and makes it easier to apply those designs to the different systems and keep them up to date. And that's true for all of the capabilities that you might have within a DXP. When we think about a DXP, we say there are 9 things that you must have in place. They can be provided either with one tool set if you've got something that suits all your needs, or in our belief, in a composable environment, you need to be able to mix and match and make these things work together harmoniously.
So a composable DXP, at least in our eyes, in Squiz eyes, is not just being able to unify and bring your ecosystem together, but fundamentally make it seem as though they work like one solution.
Correct. Correct. And it solves the problems. I've just said something like design consistency, but also solves problems like internal workflow and ease of use. When you have lots of different systems, you'll find that some systems appeal to certain groups of users internally. They might, certain tool sets might appeal to developers, for example, and that ostracizes the non-technical users within your organization, the people who need to be able to publish and manage things themselves. Composable DXP creates an environment where the different types of business users can work together, even though they might be crossing over different business systems, and it all feels like one tool, just as you described.
The argument around composable solutions traditionally has been, okay, it's built for the developer, the backend users, which still makes it really hard for people like myself, marketing, content creators, etc., to be able to collaborate well and actually speed things up. So that's kind of good to hear that those problems traditionally with being a composable DXP are being solved by Squiz.
And I'll just add to that. One of the failings of digital experience platforms, or actually just organizations feeling confident in their ability to operate in the current digital world, is empowering everyone in the organization to operate naturally, efficiently. If you can't operate in an agile way that allows all of your organizations to engage using their current skill sets, then you're not truly digitally native and you're not going to succeed in the modern world.
I think that really ties into, what we believe, which regardless of your digital maturity or your situation with where your next destination is or your skill set within the team, you should be able to come as you are and be able to build those brilliant, more complex experiences fast, and
Exactly.
also be able to embrace change for whatever will come next and not fear that, as in most cases.
Absolutely.
You talked about 9 capabilities specifically in Squiz's case. Can you walk me through those 9 and how they would work in building brilliant modern digital experiences today?
Absolutely. And I think making it concrete by actually going through those 9 makes it a lot easier to understand, right? Because the previous part of the conversation is quite theoretical. Obviously, the goal of any kind of digital experience infrastructure is to help you build digital experiences. That's what we're creating. What are the 9 capabilities that get you there? There are 3 that you'll be familiar with immediately. So the first is content management, the second is digital asset management, and the third is search. So you can't build digital experiences if you don't have access to content, some way of creating it, governing it, workflow, those sorts of things. You also need to manage things like images, videos, documents, and be able to reuse those elements efficiently. And you need some way of helping people discover content within your environment. So I kind of think of those as foundations. Now, you might assume that that means I'm saying to you, you have to have one centralized content management system or one centralized digital asset management system. I'm actually saying, I'm not saying that in the context of a composable DXP. I'm saying you need to recognize that these are capabilities that must be available to you. And in many modern organizations these days, you have more than one of each of these things. Certainly more than one content management system is quite common in large organizations. And it's actually kind of evidence, the very fact that there's often multiple CMSs is evidence of the fact that sometimes you need different tools for different jobs. And it's just the reality. What you'll resonate with if you're one of those organizations that have multiple CMSs is you'll recognize that there are problems with that. If you want to be able to keep your content consistent between systems for some reason, you're rebranding, for example, and you want to refer to something differently, it feels like you've got twice the effort if you've got 2 CMSs, 3 times the effort if you've got 3 CMSs. In fact, it probably doesn't scale linearly. It's probably not twice as hard, and three times it's probably more like squared and cubed as you add more systems, being able to juggle the complexity that comes from multiple systems. So a composable DXP recognizes that you need functions like content management, asset management, and search, but it also accepts that you may have more than one alternative available in this environment. We'll talk a little bit about how we make them work harmoniously in just a little while, but first we'll just focus on this idea of capabilities. Another capability that's really important is integration. You need to be able to talk to other systems if you're going to deliver things like personalization and customer self-service. So customer self-service would, for example, require an integration with a CRM system, because if you can't relate that information about your people, it's not going to get anywhere. And then your business flow systems that might be attached to it too, like let's say you're applying for a license, as an example. We need to connect to whatever licensing system you have internally, and then that automates the business process for you, which is a great experience for the end user, but a great efficiency for the organization too. So integration is critical. However, one of the challenges that I'm sure we've all experienced before with integration is most content management systems that have integration capability often rely on a lot of custom coding to deliver that integration. And that custom coding then creates a support liability and potentially a security risk. So if you've had a developer create an integration at some point, over time, you'll lose touch with whoever developed the thing originally, and they may have included things like security keys or some sort of logic that might be some sort of issue, and that obviously can create concerns for the organization moving forward. It also can be brittle. It can make it very difficult for you to upgrade the rest of your stack because you go, what am I going to break? By recognizing that you need an integration capability and thinking about it through that lens, you can go, well, actually, how can we manage integrations in a way that is robust and secure and resilient to things like upgrade, for example? So some people will have integration platforms that provide that capability for them. In Squiz's case, we have an integration platform, what we call, you can see there's a little acronym there, it says IPaaS, Integration Platform as a Service. So it's a visual tool that helps manage the creation of that integration. But as with the other messages on composability, there may be other tools that you already have in your environment that you want to leverage. When you've got those foundations, you've got something that you can use to build content and digital experiences on top of, but how do you control the way they look? Well, that's where you need an experience layer. And normally, in most digital experience platforms, that experience layer is tightly coupled with the content management system. And that's not great because it means the experiences you're creating are limited only to the individual content management system you've got. You're creating that silo problem that I mentioned. So if you have a look and feel, a brand that you want to be able to apply across systems, how do you do it properly? Well, the way you do it properly is you separate that layer and you create tool sets that make it easy to manage the look and feel and any front-end experience elements at a level above your content stores and separate to them so it can be applied to different systems. You also make those tool sets in a way that suits industry standard approaches. You don't tie them to your content management system per se. So that makes it much more applicable more widely, right? So you use tools like JavaScript and normal developer workflows so that when people go, I need someone to do the experience layer, all you need to do is go and hire a front-end developer You don't need, I need a Squiz CMS developer. I need an Adobe developer. I need a Drupal developer. you get the idea, right? So that's a different approach and one that's core to the way that composable DXPs should operate. The next capability that's important is being able to then deliver the solution that you've created. How are you going to publish it and make it available to the world? You can see a couple of acronyms here again as well. CDN and WAF, what do they mean? CDN, Content Delivery Network. That's the idea of being able to say, I want to accelerate the performance of what I'm publishing by making sure that it's available close to where the end user is. So if you can wrap a publishing layer, delivery layer, around your digital experience so that it's close to the end user, it makes the overall experience much faster. But you can then also secure everything that's behind as well. So that's what WAF stands for, Web Application Firewall. So if I'm building things by putting different systems together in my backend environment, how do I protect myself and know that I'm going to be secure behind the scenes? It's by putting it behind the delivery layer that sits separate to what might be multiple content management systems, content repositories, content asset stores, systems that you're integrated with behind the scenes. So another capability that's important there. Then comes two other critical capabilities. These are around making modern, optimized digital experiences. The first is the tools for optimization, which include things like analytics. So how are people operating with my system? Can I do testing, like A/B testing, for example? But also analytics around the content and the environment itself. So being able to audit what you already have in the system and saying, how accessible is it? What's the average reading age of the content? Is it performing fast? So being able to look at the experience you're creating and going, is it as good as it could be? So obviously it's the customer interactions, the customer journey elements, and then there's the elements around auditing the actual content that you're building and what you're creating. And then finally, the 8th capability that I'm talking about, I did say 9, coming to the 9th in a second, but of what you can see on the screen, the 8th capability is personalization. Got another acronym there, CDP, Customer Data Platform, which many people might be familiar with. You need somewhere where you can store information about the user's behavior as they interact with your site. So that's what a customer data platform does. It goes, I'm watching what this individual is doing. I'm understanding from watching their behavior that they might be interested in this, and therefore I'm going to segment them. I'm going to classify them and say, aha, this is, let's say we're dealing with a university. This is a prospective undergraduate student, and they seem to be more interested in STEM topics. So I'm going to promote content for them that is more relevant in their particular case. It does more than that though. So it's not just about building a profile based on users' interactions. It manages a few other things too, like consent management. Hugely important in the world of personalization. So that needs to be part of the capability that you have within your organization. And then finally, integration and harmonization of different systems that store information about your users' interactions, right? So I need to talk to your CRM system. I need to talk to whatever backend system you store data about people in, and make sure that you create a unified view of that individual who's interacting with the system. If you don't do that, you get a broken experience, right? So people go, depending on, I rang the organization and they thought this about me. When I use their website, they think this about me, and the two are not marrying up. So you don't want that. That's a bad digital experience. And so one of the layers there is the idea of a customer data platform, a CDP, to be able to do that. And again, with all of these capabilities, all of them are composable in the sense that you can swap them in and out of everything else. Now, the 9th capability. This one is the differentiator and probably the one that isn't composable. This is the one when you choose a DXP, this is the one you're picking. It's the platform layer. That's what is the element that harmonizes all of these things and make this promise of composability that I'm talking about possible. So there's two elements to making it all possible. One is obviously each of the capabilities need to be designed in a way that makes it easy for them to work together. That's important. But then once you've done that, how do you access the different capabilities and make them work together easily? How do you see the capabilities? Have you got one dashboard that's got everything in one place? Can I report on things in the different environments? Can I do things like test performance of something and go, where is this broken? I want to try to find the root cause of this issue. Is there a way of being able to find that? A composable DXP provides tool sets that help you solve those problems so that you can manage the environment overall. And in Squiz's case, we go a little bit further by having an opinion on how this should all operate. We've chosen a SaaS architecture for everything. And some of the problems that SaaS solves is the fact that the platform stays automatically up to date and scales automatically in response to demand. So this is kind of the idea when you were saying, come as you are, build brilliant experiences fast on a platform that embraces change. This is kind of the picture. It shows how those pieces come together. It's saying, I could be bringing my existing content management, my existing CDP, my existing search tool that I might have, integration, whatever. I could bring those existing tools, but I could start to use some of the other capabilities that I don't have yet. And I can help get more out of the tools that I already have by applying some of the capabilities, for example, that experience layer, I might want to be able to create a consistent design system that gets applied across my different systems. And it gives you that environment for making those things work together. The system will then stay up to date automatically because it's on this automatically updating SaaS platform. And it is resilient to change because you can swap in and out different tools as the MarTech landscape continues to evolve.
That's great. And the key thing that hit me as you went through this, we started the conversation by saying the aspiration gap between what digital promises and what most teams responsible for digital transformation and experiences face is the tech, the solutions, the options they have out there don't actually work in reality because it ignores all the problems that actually are happening in the day-to-day lives. And based on our own experience of how hard it is to actually implement that for customers in the last 25 years, that something has to change from the way we used to do things. We have to be more realistic, we have to be more practical and enable our customers to actually achieve their objectives in a way that actually makes sense, is fast, is flexible, it doesn't compromise control, it's easy to use for all the users, and it's resilient to change and actually helps you embrace change, not fear it.
You can have freedom and control. Absolutely right.
Best of both worlds.
Correct.
Thanks so much, JP. This has been enlightening as always. And I hope that anybody viewing this will be able to really understand how you can actually cross that gap, close that gap, and actually make things happen.
Thanks, man.